Most of you have probably already heard of open source software, but for those that haven't, I thought we'd take a quick look at that today. I've used Ubuntu, which is an open source operating system for PCs. Used that for years. It's been very stable. There have been some compatibility issues because it won't run ordinary Windows programs. But there are plenty of programs available for it nonetheless. So what is open source? Well, open source started a long time ago. At MIT, I believe, was the idea. Because originally software was just freely shared anyway. I think Bill Gates came along and said, no, don't share software. That's a bad idea. Keep it closed, hide the source code, and all that sort of thing. A guy called Richard Stallman, who's often credited as being the father of open source software, came up with something called the General Public License, or GPL. And what it basically is a sort of a viral license. So it lets you use software commercially, privately, modify it, do anything you like to it. The only stipulation is that if you modify it, you have to distribute it under the same license. So what that means is that you can take GPL software and design a new version and you can sell it even. Nobody says you can't do that, but you can't stop somebody from copying it. I think that's basically the sort of the fundamentals. And so what that leads to is a very sort of dynamic and fast-moving software environment where lots and lots of different teams work on different components of operating systems or browsers. And I bet almost everyone has used some open source software of one sort or another. If you've used Android, large parts of that are open source. In fact, it's pretty much all open source, I think. If you've used Firefox, that's open source. Tesla actually uses Ubuntu as the underlying operating system for its cars. So there you go. If you are driving a Tesla, you are using Ubuntu. So there are some advantages and some disadvantages to open source. And to help me illustrate that fact, I'm going to use Jasper and his building blocks. Right, now what we're going to do is we're going to build the proprietary house. There we go. So Jasper, so this is the proprietary house. You like it? It's a nice house, isn't it? Can you drive the monster truck in through the door?
It fits.
Oh, what can we do? Well, the problem is this. Although this is a really nice house, it'll only do exactly what it was designed to do. And there's no way for you to change it. Now let's pretend for a second that this was an open source house.
Open source house?
Yeah, an open source house. Now can you drive it in? Yay! Now Jasper, I want you to add some more stuff on here. Yeah, go on then. Now there is a downside to open source, and that downside is that lots of people will make changes to things, and they won't always be the changes that you want. Wowee! That's beautiful.
Here, Daddy, a big house.
It is a big house, isn't it? I think you get the idea. So okay, that was a light-hearted way to illustrate the point, but fundamentally, what you wind up with is quite different types of software from both open source and proprietary, and sometimes one is best and sometimes the other is best. So, for example, I know one of the problems that Google have with Android is they actually find it quite difficult to keep control of it. They can't stop people like Samsung, etc., from putting loads of their own bloatware into what's otherwise a perfectly reasonable operating system. At the same time, however, the development costs to build an entire operating system from scratch would be astronomical, which is why basically nobody does it. So yeah, open source is great, but there are times when proprietary actually is a lot easier for end users. I mean, the example that springs to my mind is I've had terrible trouble getting any kind of open source video editing software to be usable. I mean, 90% of the time I spend hours and hours and hours just trying to produce a video file that will play, let alone be the right sort of quality and all the rest of it. And that's fundamentally because the people that design the software are developers. So they build it for themselves, of course, because they put the time in for free most of the time. But the downside is I just want to use the software. I don't want to have to study the internet for hours on end just to make it do anything even vaguely useful. So that's been a real roadblock for me. Whereas you go to something like Premiere Pro, it's just got an option that says YouTube 1080p. You just click that and out comes a video that plays perfectly and is encoded well for YouTube. I hope you've all found today's little video interesting. If you have, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, because there will be more interesting and riveting videos over the coming weeks and months on my daily vlog. So bye, and I'll see you tomorrow. It's going to be fun tomorrow. Might try and work some more monster trucks into it.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Well done. Thank you so much, Jasper. You've been very good. Oh, doesn't fit. Luckily the car is open source. There we go, job done.